Be sure to listen to Carson and Me afternoons on Mix 107.3 to hear if you're a winner from the new Bethesda Theater and Mix 107.3.
WRQX, Washington. This is Sundays on Mix 107.3. Now your host, Chili Amar.
Good morning and welcome to Sundays. Joining me this morning is Dani Babb, author of Finding Foreclosures, an insider's guide to cashing in on this hidden market. In today's program, Danielle's going to be telling us about alternative investment paths like real estate market, and then she's going to give us some tips on how you can enter it. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. What's your background, Danielle? I mean, you were in real estate, I take it, or like how did you come to write this book?
Well, I actually have a mix of technology and real estate in terms of my background. I was a technologist for commercial real estate, residential real estate, and I've blended the two. Basically, I do have my own real estate license, but I'm an investor primarily, and I teach economics for several universities. So I blend all of them and try and really help consumers know how to use real estate as an investment option.
Why is real estate such a good investment option?
Real estate's a fantastic investment option because there's only so much land. People need places to live. There are obviously areas that are hotter markets than others, but we're not going to run out of a need for individuals to have a place to live anytime soon.
I know that, when I bought my house, now it's been 7 years, the prices were just starting to skyrocket. And if I had bought even a year later, I wouldn't be able to live in the home that I live in now.
Right.
And if I were to sell my home now, I would make double what I paid for it, which is great for me if I want to sell my house. But the other side of that is you still have to pay a lot, into another home.
Sure.
And now it's more of a buyer's market because prices have come down considerably from a year ago and houses are on the market longer. Mm-hmm. If people do you have to have disposable income to purchase real estate property? And is this the best time to do it because, we're sort of coming back down on the prices?
Well, it's definitely a good time to buy. Like you said, it's a buyer's market.
Right.
But 1 to 2 years ago, you could get into a home with no money down, 5% down or 10% down, which means that you had to have a lot less cash on hand to actually close escrow. But today, banks are a lot more afraid to lend money to borrowers, especially those that don't have stellar credit. And so those individuals are needing to come in with 15 to 20% down. And if it's an investor, it's more like 30% down today. So it is a little more difficult to close escrow on a loan.
So does the average person have 30% to put down on a home? I mean, or are you talking to a very specific group of people right now? It can't just be everybody.
Yeah, this market has eliminated a lot of potential home buyers. That's one big difference between today and 2 years ago. 2 years ago, when money was fairly inexpensive to borrow, people were actually going to the banks. Banks then provided product to fit a variety of different types of individuals, including those with bad credit, foreclosures, bankruptcies. Someone who even, I've had a close relative who had just lost their home 6 months ago and was able to close escrow with 5% down on a home because the banks were so eager. The market was booming. They saw equity in the homes. And so they were using the equity in the homes and not just the down payment. But today banks want the individuals to have a personal stake in the homes. And the only way to accomplish that is to require them to bring cash to close. Investors 30%, but if you're just a homeowner looking to maybe move up or to buy your first home, you can still do the 10 to 20% range if you have good credit.
What does foreclosure mean? Technically, foreclosure is a process, and once a home is foreclosed upon, it means that the individual has to vacate, and then the bank now owns the home. But because they're no longer able to make mortgage payment on it.
Exactly. It doesn't happen overnight. You become delinquent. The bank files a notice of default. There are judicial and non-judicial processes based on the state that you live in. So sometimes it goes through the courts, and sometimes it doesn't. And over a period of time, usually about between 4 to 6 months, 6 months generally being the max, the home would then be taken back by the bank. It's in the homeowner's best interest to not let that happen and to sell the home before it actually gets foreclosed upon, because then they just see late payments on their credit and not a foreclosure.
What or how common are foreclosures, even in an affluent area like the D.C. market?
Actually, D.C. ranks very, very low. There are only 40 foreclosures in all of D.C. And to compare that, if you're looking at areas like Henderson or Las Vegas, Nevada, where you've got 25 to 30,000 homes in foreclosure, the average in the nation is 1 in 134 households. So every 134 homes, there's 1 in foreclosure. But we have some states like Nevada, it's 1 in 40. And we have some, the next state would be Colorado, 1 in 60. And then in California, 1 in 69. And then, of course, we've seen the August numbers come up considerably in Florida as well, with huge gains in foreclosures July to August.
So then if you're interested in investing in real estate or buying a property and renting it out to somebody, then is it in your best interest to find one that's in foreclosure?
It would be your best interest to find one that's in the pre-foreclosure status. Pre-foreclosure, yeah. That means it hasn't gone to auction yet. The bank doesn't own it. Once the bank owns it, they want to recoup all of their costs and their losses. So if you can find someone who is 60 days late on their payments and then work with them and the bank to make sure that their assets are covered, that they have a path to move forward, and then take possession of that property. You can even do an equity split, for example, with the existing owner. There are a lot of ways to work it where the individual is not left with a foreclosure on their record and no home and no place to live.
How much does that potentially save you in finding somebody who's about to go into foreclosure?
We're looking at 15 to 40%.
Oh my gosh.
So it's a lot.
That's like a major sale.
It is a major sale.
I got my house at 40% off because somebody couldn't afford to live there anymore. I mean, that's huge. How do you find these homes?
I use 3 sources. I use the bank's websites themselves, where they actually have links. I also use HUD homes, which are homes where the FHA backed the loan or the VA backed the loan, and then the individual couldn't make their payments. And I also use RealtyTrack.com. And the reason I like RealtyTrack is it'll actually tell me who's in pre-foreclosure status. So that's my pick of the 3. Okay,
so if you were to just give the best website to track down foreclosures, whether it be in this area or outside this area, it's which one? Realty?
It's RealtyTrack, yes.
And it's Track, T-R-A-C-K?
TRAC.com.
T-R-A-C. RealtyTrack.com. Okay, so you go on RealtyTrack.com and you look to see which homes are in pre-foreclosure.
Right.
And how much money, before you even think about that, do you really need to have in your back pocket before you start taking these steps?
You need to have 10% of what the ultimate price will be with that seller.
Okay. And then once you go on the website, you find it, do you need an agent to do any of the work for you, or you just sort of contact these people directly?
Yeah, we don't recommend that you use an agent. And the reason is that these individuals are losing their homes. The last thing they want to do is feel like they're losing their home to a salesperson who's coming in, who's going to make a quick buck on their unfortunate loss. They want to work with someone who cares, who's going to give them some opportunity, maybe to let them live in the home for 3 or 4 months rent-free while they get their lives back together, who will maybe pay their rent for the first few months on an apartment, who will actually work with them, has their interests at heart as well. And when you bring an agent into the mix, particularly one that's not experienced in foreclosures, you can really create some trouble for yourself and really turn the homeowner off and add to their difficulty.
Assuming that you saved anywhere from 10 to 40% in purchasing a home in pre-foreclosure, what is the average that you can make on that home if you maybe fix it up a little bit or rent it out? I mean, is there a formula that sort of figure out that this really is a great investment for you? Because on average, not only do you save up front buying this place, but then when you flip it or sell it back in the market, when the market gets better, you could make a lot of money.
Yeah, if you were to sell it now and you got it 30% under value and you assume 10% for repairs, then obviously you can make a quick 20%.
Right.
But if you can wait some time, a couple of years until the market has successfully rebounded, you could gain substantially. And there's no reason that you can't rent the property out while you're waiting for that to happen as well. And maybe even back to the individuals that were living there and give them a couple of years.
And I have a friend of mine who does this very well. It's basically buying up, property and selling it a couple of years down the road. But he doesn't do it in this market because it's really expensive to buy a home in the D.C. area. So he, does his homework. He has time to do all this research, and he buys in different states where property taxes are lower. Sure. Anyway, he's got this down to a science, and he makes a lot of money doing it. Is it okay or is it smart to buy outside of the area that you live in? Because, you're not physically there to keep an eye on things. You're just sort of trusting that everything is okay?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's one we get asked a lot. All of the properties that I own as investments are in the state I don't live in because I can't afford to buy investment property in California.
Yeah.
What I've done is I'll find it online. Sometimes I'll see the property. I've only purchased about 20% of them looking at the property. The other 80% has been sight unseen. I hire my own independent appraiser, my own independent inspector.
Okay.
Not one that the agent hired because the agent is obviously wanting the home to close. Not one that the homeowner has hired because they want the home to sell. So I've hired my own independent people. I find out, get a full report of what the foundation is like, what the roof is like, even all the way down to cracked windowsills that could cost money later on down the road. Get a full inspection report. Usually all of that will cost you about $1,000 for all of the reports that you need. And then I just make a decision. I look at photos. I ask my own agent sometimes if I'm buying property outside of the state. Sometimes I will use my own agent, and I'll ask them for their opinion on the property. I'll also use sites that give me rental comps, so I know what I can rent the property out at. Rentometercom is one great one. You can find out what properties are going for in the area.
Rentometer?
Yeah, rentometer.com. And basically people go on that site and they post, hey, I'm renting a 2-bedroom apartment in Manhattan and I'm paying $2,500 a month, and it takes an average and you type in your criteria and it will tell you about what you can rent it for. Then you can run your numbers and see if you can make a monthly profit.
And then how long do you, on average, hold on to any given property? You personally, because you're pro at this now.
Well, I've only sold 3. I'm actually holding a majority of my portfolio. I'm going to wait for at least 10 years for this market to really, really come back. And I'm younger, so I'm not in a big hurry to sell. This is not a market that I would recommend someone who's 5 years away from retirement buying.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like, who is this for buying, pre-foreclosure homes and investing ideal for? And the age bracket is not like over 55.
No, I would not recommend to anybody who needs this money to retire. You'd be much better off using maybe a money market fund or a 401k if it's not too late to invest in that, because it's a much safer investment over the long haul. Real estate is some significant spikes and significant downfalls as we're seeing right now. We've got builders doing fire sales like Hovnanian did over the last weekend that can drop prices by $100,000 overnight in areas. It's too risky right now of a market for someone who really needs the money to be in.
And if somebody wants to do this and they use their home equity as a piggy bank,
yes,
is that smart?
Well,
that makes me so nervous because it's imaginary money. I mean, it's not like what I already have in the bank. And what are the pros and cons to doing that? Because people do that a lot.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about that. I've used my home as a piggy bank to buy other homes. So obviously I have some belief that it works and that it's a good investment. It really comes down to return. If you're going to pay 8% on the money in that HELOC that you took out to buy the property, and you're going to get back a 15% annual return, then you're making 7%. So it's really not a big deal to pay the 8% interest rate. But if you're buying in an area and now the market's depressed, like I purchased some property in Austin, Texas, and while it hasn't gone down, it hasn't gone up. So I'm paying my 8.5% on my HELOC, and I'm really not making anything off of the other properties. So I have to wait some time to get that money back. I'm not a fan of using HELOCs to go on shopping sprees and on expensive vacations like a lot of people were doing for a while.
Yeah.
But to buy other income property, it's not necessarily a bad investment.
Okay, so just be smart about it.
Be smart about it, yeah.
So let's say somebody's listening right now and I've got some money, sure, as long as I don't have to buy around this area, I think I could do it. I'm going to go to realtytrack.com and okay, now what? How do I search for this perfect piece of property? What do I look for, and what do I avoid?
Well, you're going to look for zip codes that have remained relatively stable, unless you're a person who's willing to take much more risk. I'll give you an example. If you are 30 years old and you've got an extra $15,000 and you want to really play the market and you're willing to hold for 15 years, I would consider buying Henderson or Las Vegas, Nevada, because the prices have tumbled there and you can get a really good deal. But you can't sell it tomorrow and make back what you've earned or what you paid. You may not even be able to break even for a few years. It could still considerably drop. If you are basically, what you're going to want to do is you're going to put in the zip code of the area that you're interested in, put in the home criteria, and then you're going to save the search and let the system email you every day with new homes on the market that just hit pre-foreclosure status. And on the top tab of Realty Track, it's going to tell you pre-foreclosure homes, which means that the homeowner is delinquent on their payment. It's going to tell you bank-owned properties. It's going to tell you those that went to auction. It's got several different criteria that you can use. I recommend, even though it's the most number in terms of having to sort through, using the pre-foreclosure tab. And then it will show you which individuals or which homes are valued, what the homes are valued at, and what the homeowner owes on them. And it will also tell you who their bank is that you can call and you can get information about.
So you may not even have to ever directly deal with the seller.
No, you will. You will, because the bank is not going to release information without their consent.
Oh, okay.
They'll give you some information, but they're not going to tell you what their last payment was, what the loan balance was.
Okay.
Now, RealtyTrack does publish the public information available on their website, and you can get an idea of what they owe versus what the value is. Find something that has incredible value, that looks really good there. Now, check it with 2 other sites. Check it with Domania and check it with Zillow. Both of them are comparative analysis sites. So you need to get more than one measurement. Don't just use RealtyTrack's appraisal system. Use the other 2 as well, and that's Zillow and Domania.
And when you've dealt with the sellers of the homes that you've purchased, I mean, are you the bad guy or are you the hero? Because you came along and sort of prevented them from having to, actually foreclose. I mean, it's got to be tough position because, here I am with money, bye-bye, this is my house now. We try and stay away from proceeding with our business like that at all, because we know how hard it is for these individuals. And, my co-author and I have had some close months ourselves, so we understand how it can happen with fluctuating income especially. And so we have had sellers who, don't want to talk to you at first. It requires consistent communication, being extremely nice. Sometimes we'll send a postcard before we call. And that's one of the reasons we don't like going through an agent, because it really turns off the seller. It's so impersonal.
It's so impersonal.
Yeah.
And also, understand that once these hit even the pre-foreclosure stage, they have so many people calling them saying, hey, I want to buy your home. Hey, I want to buy your home. You've got to stand out. You need to be the person who's willing to wait, who's kind, who's patient, who says, hey, I'll help you. I'll let you live there for a while, who really makes a difference and is different than the other individuals.
Okay. And you call this a hidden market because most people don't know that this foreclosure market is something you can tap into, and it's a great way to get in.
Well, we call it a hidden market because most people believe they associate with foreclosures with auctions, and that the only way to buy a foreclosure home is at an auction or once the bank takes possession of the property. But the foreclosure process happens long before then, and all of our studies and the research that's out there by RealtyTrack has shown the best deal is actually before they get there.
Even before the auction.
But well before the auction.
And that's the better deal.
It's a better deal. The banks don't want to go through the process of foreclosure. It's very expensive.
Wow. This is exciting stuff and unfortunately sad. But, you mentioned Nevada, Henderson, Nevada, as being in the tank right now.
Right.
How in the world does any particular area get to that point?
Well, in those areas we had a lot of speculators. Some as much as 75% of some markets were being purchased by investors. What happens is when the markets start to tighten and the homes are not worth as much as they once were, when you're an investor, you're either going to let your primary residence go back to the bank, or you're going to let your investment properties go back to the bank if you can't afford them all. And if you can't find renters because everyone was able to buy a house, so the rental market dried up, to pay the mortgage for you, and your rate suddenly adjusted and your payment has doubled, you have no choice in many cases but to let it go back to the bank. And the same happened to individual homeowners. People wanted in on the market, and for the first time in the early 2000s, people who had bad credit or who were considered subprime borrowers were able to get a loan. And now these people, they were given rates that allowed them to buy the home and afford it for the first year, but now their rates are adjusting and they're having to pay the full payment and they can't afford to do it.
Is there any particular area, Danielle, that's sort of almost immune from this kind of problem?
New York City. Because of
how about the D.C. metro area?
Well, D.C. metro area, the foreclosure statistics on D.C. metro are actually very thin. We don't have a lot of data on D.C. in particular. But New York City...
Nobody shares that information? Weird. Okay. But New York City is about the safest bet.
It is about the safest bet right now. And the reason being is that a lot of foreign investors who were putting money in London and Moscow, once our dollar dropped compared to their currencies, started coming here. And we know that they were in Washington, Virginia. We know that they were in New York. We know that they are in those 3 states. So those states have not been hit as hard as some of the ones on the West Coast in particular.
But even the Henderson, Nevadas of the world will make a comeback.
Over the long term, absolutely.
Over the long term.
Over a 10-year, any 10-year period in history, real estate's never decreased. The question is, will it beat other investment opportunities, like the stock market, for example?
Well, how closely do you keep tabs on all your property once you've purchased them? I mean, do you kind of do like every 6 months you check up on it? Because it is long term. I mean, how obsessive are you going to get on, well, how's it going? How's it going? Can I sell now? Or do you just sort of quote unquote forget about it?
I don't even check, and I generally don't check my stock portfolio either, because those are also all long-term buys. I only check the ones that are very volatile, and I do the same thing in real estate. I have property managers that keep tabs on the properties. That's something I really recommend if you're buying out of state. You need a property manager that will do a drive-by. I had a terrible property manager out in Bullhead City that did not ever check up on the property, and the individual had 4 feet worth of trash piled up. And it's not until the neighbor started complaining that I was even made aware of it. So it's important to have a very good property manager, one that you trust, that you've gotten recommendations from, and that you check out references. Let them manage the property. If you want to check Domania, I know same thing with the stock portfolio. Sometimes you just can't help it. You want to see if the value's gone up. But it doesn't go up day to day like the stock market does. It's a long-term thing.
It is a long-term
So if you need to check every year just to keep yourself calm, it's understandable. But watch what the top 10 to 20 foreclosure cities are and make sure that your properties are not in those. And if they're not, wait it out.
Okay, but I'm a little confused then. You don't want your properties to be in the top 10 foreclosure cities? Wouldn't Henderson be one of those?
Well, that's if you already own them. Then you need to check more often on the price.
Okay.
Because you don't want the price to just drop tomorrow and you're unaware of it.
Okay.
But if you're buying an investment now, you're going to want to go into those foreclosure markets.
Okay.
Right. Because that's where the best deals are. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So once you have property, is to make sure you're not remaining in the low. The worst of the worst.
Yeah, and it's always hard to figure out when the best time to buy is. If we all knew that, we'd all be rock star wealthy, right? So,
true.
One of the goals is to just make sure that you buy something that's relatively stable and rentable. So if you do get into a jam, you're able to rent it out. You don't want to go in the worst school neighborhoods, for example. And you can check all of that out, like using Domania and Zillow. Check out the demographics of the area.
So you don't necessarily rent out all the property you own?
I have about 70% rented and 30% unrented.
And you just keep paying the mortgage on the 30%?
I do.
On your own?
Paying on my own.
Until the property goes up, the value goes up enough for you to sell it.
Well, if I'm not renting it, it's because it's already for sale. So anything I'm holding, I do rent. So
it's just continuously for sale? There's a for sale sign on the 30% of the homes that you don't rent out? Until they're sold. Or until I give up and rent it. Well, how much time do you usually give? I was surprised that it was your answer. How long do you wait for those properties to sell? I was waiting 6 months and had really good luck, but now I have to wait longer. Now I'm waiting about 1 year, and if they don't sell, I'm renting them. And it does take a toll on your finances. It comes directly out of my paycheck to pay those mortgages. It can be tough. I'm speaking with Dani Babb, who's a co-author of Finding Foreclosures, an insider's guide to cashing in on the hidden market. Who is this book for? Ideally, it's for individuals who have, say, $10,000 to $20,000 that want to purchase their first home, either for their family or as an investment, who want to diversify with the stock market. They want to balance their portfolios and have real estate and stocks. It's also for individuals who maybe have a lot of equity in their primary home, and they want to figure out how best to invest that money, and they want to diversify it. They may want to buy 1 or 2 rental properties. It's also for individuals. We've had a lot of families contact us that really wanted to move up. Maybe they're not in the best of neighborhoods, and now they think it's a great time to be able to go buy another home. Now, those people are running into a slight problem because they have to sell their old home first, unless they can take out a HELOC and get money out of their home. And I know that, in this day and age, with technology and the internet, does this book sort of take you step by step on how to take advantage of the internet and getting you to where you want to go, I guess, in investing in real estate? Yeah, absolutely. We talk about everything from title searches on the internet so that when you take possession of a property, maybe some mechanic didn't put a lien on that house for $10,000 you weren't aware of. We talk about how to do that. We talk about how specifically to use RealtyTrack after evaluating all of the sites. That's the one we chose to partner with.
We talk about how to find comparative analyses online, how to know if they're accurate, how to find the best mortgage rate online. We really want people to use the internet because that's what's leveled the playing field for people to be able to buy these today.
And any feedback that you've gotten? I don't know how long this has been out on the market, but any feedback that you've gotten from people who've actually tried to do what you say in the book and have had good results?
Absolutely. We have our own blog on Entrepreneur. It's called findingforeclosures.entrepreneur.com, and we have people talking about the ways that they've been successful there. My co-author Bill and I get consistent emails about people who are now applying what they're learning in the book. Since it's only been out for a couple of months, it does take some time to close. So we're just now starting to see what people are doing as a result of the material.
And where can somebody get hold of Finding Foreclosures?
They can go to our website, which is findingforeclosureexperts.com.
Finding Foreclosure Experts?
Yes, .com.
Okay.
They can also go to Amazon. They can go to Barnes & Noble. They can go to Borders. Our website offers some tips for individuals as well, so there's a small value add to use our website, but you can get it anywhere.
Is this the only book, Danielle, that you have out right now?
No, I have actually another book called Commissions at Risk that was released last October, and I have one coming out in 2 months called Real Estate Version 2.0.
And what is that one going to entail?
That one is going to be how to technology-proof your business by using blogs and podcasts to enhance your real estate business.
Real estate business, that's going to be geared specifically for real estate agents?
Real estate professionals, yes, whether it's bankers or agents.
Wow. And then the one that that came out last year, who's your audience for that?
That's also the real estate professional, and it was rather than just talking about Web 2.0 enablement, it was more in general that agents really are not savvy in general about using technology, and that's why Finding Foreclosures was such a big deal for us, because we're telling the consumer, hey, this is how you can take advantage of it. We've also told the agents this is what you need to do to make sure the consumers can find you in the internet age.
Well, in the internet age, I imagine that we don't need the real estate agents as much as we did back in the day. I mean, I know when I was looking for my house, I would go to like 5 or 6 different real estate sites and just find the homes in the neighborhoods that I wanted to buy in. It wasn't until the actual process of closing that I needed anybody, and even then I really didn't have to. So I'm imagining that the internet is actually potentially hurting their business because people can find the property on their own.
Yeah, that's been my theory for the last couple of years. I've obviously received a lot of pushback from real estate professionals, and I am a California licensed real estate agent myself as well. And I don't think that we're going to be relevant in 10 years from now when transactions can happen entirely online. And that's a very controversial opinion, but I just see technology headed there. We already have e-closings, e-signings. The title and escrow companies can handle a majority of the transactions, and buyers and sellers can save 6%, between 5 and 6% on average on a home sale. And if you're in today's market and you need to get your home sold quickly, that 6% can mean the difference between staying in your home in 6 months or not.
Huge. I guess what they have to hope for is that people aren't as savvy online to manage to do all that. Again, I've been speaking with Danielle Babb, co-author of Finding Foreclosures, an insider's guide to cashing in on this hidden market. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. And I again want to share the website findingforeclosure.com, also realtytrack.com, and rentometer.com. There's a couple of the websites that you had shared with us. And if you're listening, please do check those out. And good luck in your endeavor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been Sundays on Mix 107.3. If you have an opinion or topic suggestion you'd like to share with us, just fax us at 202-686-3070 or write to Sundays, care of Mix 107.3, 4400 Jennifer Street Northwest, Washington, D.C. 20015. Join us next week at this same time for another edition of Sundays on Mix 107.3. WRQX Washington with the Jack Diamond Morning Show.
And the best mix.